made and cinched down tight over your ears. So take it away, Dave and Mickey.
You know what, Mickey? I'm glad I had a practice run of this because this is Dave
and Mickey
Shiny Side Out on WCCR, coming to you from Australia for Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com. If you didn't know, we're in the chat room right now, and it is home to fresh, unfiltered ideas, and there's conversations going on right now with Mickey and I in the chat room. And it's also a place, that's the station's website, it's a place to get your merch. And I'll just put my teeth back in. Catch us on air, online, and anywhere on your smart device. So grab an app to listen anywhere or listen at home on a Grace Tabletop digital radio, because this is show number 521.
120 and to 500, please.
I was going to say wrong accent, wrong language. Yeah, pardon me. If you missed Solaris' show, you did miss a great one. I actually heard all of it, and tonight Solaris had on Madeline Rudy, and well, while they started talking about life in the hologram, it did completely morph into a ton of other great topics. So jump into the archives on the station and download it. You don't have to worry. Worrying's for chumps. These days, you can. It's okay. And if you like anything you hear on anyone's show, you can either donate directly to the station via any payment method across the whole planet. Don't quote me on it, because there might be some that just aren't possible. But I think they've pretty much got everything covered. So you can do that through Patreon, or you can use PayPal, or you can send a handwritten check. Follow the instructions on the website. You can also buy some merch. So buying merch is really easy because there's only a very slim margin that goes to the station, but you get your merch, right? You can support Revolution Radio that way. Now, if you like Dave and Mickey Shiny Set Out, you could also join us on Patreon. You could also buy our merch, and we only get a very small cut. So please do that to support us. Please, we ask. We don't beg, but we ask. If you like anything we say, if we entertain you even, it's important that you support us, because that way we're able to continue to do this, because we're doing what do you call it, Mickey, how we get paid for this?
Gratis, for free, nothing, zero, zish, nada.
You know what? I was looking for 3 times the wage that we were earning here, and as my math goes, 3 times 0 is still 3 times 0, which is still 0.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, so look, I'm going to be honest with you. Mickey and I, we're broadcasting out of Australia, and we have the greatest respect for elders past, present, and future. And I'm broadcasting out of Darkinjung country.
And I am broadcasting out of Durak country.
Yes, and it's extremely important that wherever you are, that you understand who the native peoples were in that region, and just take a moment to know that they kept the land the way it was. They didn't dig it up and sell it and exploit it and just sell some dirt to someone else in the world and make billions of dollars from it. Right? They didn't do that. There wasn't dirt to sell. No one wanted dirt. I want rocks. Becky, I'm going to tell you, there's a lame segue, but last night I went to, it was like a murder mystery at Elizabeth House, which is one of the oldest wealthy properties at Elizabeth Bay in Sydney Harbour. And at the time when the house was built, they probably owned 100 acres or more. But now they've sold it all off, and it's shrunk down to just the building, pretty much, and the garden. And it's beautiful, and the house is sandstone on sandstone, built out of sandstone through the basement, and it's huge doorways, real timber. Everything is built as like maybe 150 years ago or thereabouts. I didn't look at the date. I apologize, but it was a really fun night of guessing who the murderer was. Now I'm not going to give it away, and I know they change it, so they have a bunch of different scenarios. So even if you've been there before, you can go again. And
it was Bob. Different. Bob did it.
Bob. I thought we worked out you did it, but anyway, I'm not going to tell anyone what the secret is. No, it was good fun, and we went out for dinner. Now I don't think I've said anything like that for 2 years. We went out, we had fun. This is maskless fun. Oh my goodness! And we drove 70 kilometers to get to it. To enjoy ourselves, then to flee and come back home again afterwards. But it was really good. It was good to be in my old stomping ground. I used to live in Surrey Hills. So, we had dinner at a really nice place. It used to be the Bentley Bar. I don't care if you don't know where it is, but it was really good to actually go out and do something. So, with all this turmoil in the world, I had to just, take a breath and take solace and do something that was rather nice. Meki, how was your week?
Oh, look, it would just went by, Yeah, seriously, that's the sound it made as it went past me.
Really? Wow. I might have heard that.
Right. No, look, not sick. No one was sick this week. Touch wood.
Not this week. Good.
That's good. Touching wood over here.
It's the other leg. It's both.
It's the old peg leg. The whale took it, but I'll get the whale yet.
Yes, I have.
But all things being equal, if you look at the international news, it's phenomenal. So the one thing I saw that I found interesting, there's hardly any news on the pandemic at all. Like I mean, it's just, like literally. Gone in the same breath, but they're now saying that instead of 6 million people having died, officially they're thinking it's close to 18 million globally.
About 3 times higher. Yeah, that's great.
Which I think is complete nonsense as well. I think I think that the actual number, and only a retrospective population study will show this.
That's right.
So will show much higher casualty rate, and it won't just be due to whatever virus this is, but due to other things. We are, of course, getting ready here in Australia for the next variant. It's Omicron B or 2B or something.
Not enough fear porn. We need more fear porn. That's what we need.
Right? We need, exactly. That's what we need, more fear porn. And apparently this is 1.4 times more infectious. Hooray. So
that truly is the butterfly effect. If someone sneezes somewhere in the world, you're going to get Omicron.
And then we are now lucky enough to have Japanese encephalitis. Which is transmitted by mosquitoes exclusively, similar to malaria, so you can't get it person to person. The only thing that is, we had it before in Australia.
Mosquito-borne.
It is. But the key thing to understand here is that we have never had it this far south. So in Australia, the further south you go, the colder it gets, right?
Yeah.
The further north you go, the hotter it gets, and that's because we're flip side of the equator. And anyway, in the northern reaches of Australia, this is a fairly, I guess, not a common disease, but it happens because it's just the way it is.
From time to time.
But
because it's a cascade problem.
But now these specific mosquitoes are now going further south, and they take with them the Japanese encephalitis agent, if you will, right? I think it's a virus. It could be bacterium. I'm not sure. But essentially, what happens is, you get sick even in the colder climes, or supposedly colder climes in Australia. Another thing that we see is changing with the climate, and there will be more and more of this. We will soon, in even the more, let's call them the more temperate climes, we will soon require regular malaria shots, I should think. Yellow fever, I should think, in places like Northern Europe, because the summers are going to get hotter and wetter.
They've already spoken about the use of ivermectin.
Well, yeah, look, ivermectin. There's a whole bunch of drugs that are really good for malaria. Okay, and ivermectin is one of them. Look, if you drink gin and tonic, good for you. It's got quinine in there. Quinine is an active ingredient that also protects against malaria. And that's why gin and tonic was invented by the British.
Nice.
To fortify their expats in places like India and Singapore, etc., Hong Kong. Now, but the other thing, and sorry, there's a whole bunch more news that Dave is going to share as well. But the one thing that I found interesting is the development of this non-invasion and non-war. If you watch the Russian media. And war and invasion, if you watch other media, in the Ukraine. So people say, oh, how's it possible that, number one, that, Putin seems to be, not as progressing as quickly as he should, and it's dragging out, and why is that? And then now he's asking 16,000 Syrian fighters to fight in Ukraine for him. Now, okay, you have to understand that, and we mentioned this before, that Russia is not a massive economic powerhouse. It just isn't. And what it has been robbed by the oligarchs. That's what they do. They rob the country blind. So the war chest, as it were, isn't that big. So Putin doesn't have a lot of money. So that's why he's asking all these other fighters to come in. Now, the Ukraine did the same thing. Don't get me wrong. Ukraine said, hey, come and fight in our Ukrainian Foreign Legion. You get citizenship, and please come in. So all the fighters from overseas, please come and help us against Russia. That's what they're saying, right? But I expect that because Ukraine isn't powerful militarily speaking. Right? It's also not a powerful economy either. So all the help they can get, they will ask for. Russia, on the other hand, most people think is just this amazing military power. It is not. It has a lot of hardware, yes, but having something and using it are two different things. So let me put it this way, Dave. You own a house, right?
Yeah.
Now, when you own a house, so you pay a certain amount of money, you're probably still paying it off just like me. But that's not it. You then also have to maintain your house. You have to pay tax on your house, maybe council rates.
Yeah.
You have to pay for electricity if you want to have lights and heat, water.
If you want lights, yeah.
Yeah. So just buying the house, right? That's not going to set you up for success. You have to be able to maintain it. It's the same with anything you own. And if you own anything out there in Radioland, if you have ownership of anything, you know what I'm talking about. If you do not, if you're like a millennial that has really never owned anything and only lives in his parents' backyard in a mini house or whatever, then you don't know what I'm talking about. That's okay though. But if you do own something, you have to maintain it, and that costs money, a lot of money. And it costs less money if it is stationary. It just does, because it doesn't do anything, right? It just sits there, but you still have to maintain it, but it costs less. Once you start moving that stuff around, it costs you a lot of money, a lot of money. And that's where we are today. It has in fact been 14 or 15 days now that he's been in the field, and I reckon he's only got juice for another 2 weeks, buddy.
Yeah, I know, we're coming to the third week. So, yeah, that's right. Now, you said juice. It's really interesting that you say that, because that kind of segues into two things that I've got to mention. One is the footage that I saw of the convoy, the Russian convoy with the Zs painted on them, being hit by the javelins, was trucks and troop transports from 1945. The era that those vehicles were made was all the way back then. This isn't new kit, not by a long shot. Mind the pun. So I had a look, and so I recently saw the exact same vehicles in World War II, Spitfire ground strafing, not rocket fire, but machine gun fire. Of World War II, and exactly the same hardware was being hit in those videos, because I kind of enjoy war footage for what it means, and from the strategy, and then with all the gun cameras that they used, they were able to refine the angle of approach for the most successful hit count, and how you can maneuver the plane and get out of the way. So very interesting, whether it was a train or it was a road train, for instance, vehicles. But what I noticed as soon as I saw that footage from on the ground in Ukraine, one of the live streams, I went, hang on a minute, that's from 1945. These are really old vehicles that were sent in. And then that got me questioning something. Is this whole conflict simply to engage the West. And nothing more. Is it part of a larger move? So, Meki, you and I are playing chess. You choose one of your different opening strategies. And one of those, during the game, may very well be the sacrificial pawn. And that's a call sign. Remember the movie? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Home base, sacrificial pawn to home base. And so by putting the old vehicles in, keeping anything that they might have current, even the police departments in the West have newer technology than what was getting driven into in those long columns. I can't stop questioning it. And it brought up a brand new topic. So that was topic number one. Topic number two came to me the other day when I read an article that says that McDonald's has now shut all 850 of its outlets in Russia.
Mm-hmm.
Laugh all you like. But that was the trigger to Thomas Friedman's theory. In 1996, an economist, Thomas Friedman, came up with what is known as the Golden Arches theory of conflict prevention, where the notion that no two countries with McDonald's franchises have ever gone to war with each other.
Is that right?
That's absolutely true.
Wow. Really?
Yes, 100%. 100% true. And therefore, people in McDonald's countries, he said, don't like to fight wars.
So hang on a second. So all you think? No, let me just break this up.
Please back it up. Unpack this.
So if I wanted to achieve world peace,
yes,
if that was my goal,
yes,
all I have to do is open the McDonald's franchise in every country.
Every country, that's right.
Wow.
Now, as it's so astounding a theory, but what was still true. So by closing down the McDonald's in Russia, will still allow that theory to work if there should be a conflict. Is that not crazy?
Look,
I know, right?
I don't even know what to say to that.
I have all the links to prove it all, right? It's all a thing. So I'm going to furnish Meki with some of these links into our chat room. I'll also do it into the station's chat room. And just so you're all completely aware of what this is, I remember watching, I think he had a TED Talk on this. And it was before TED Talks, but back in 1996, when he issued the theory, it went across the globe, and everyone's like, wow, yeah, that's really cool. He was an invitational speaker to a lot of things that I remember seeing, not live, but I remember seeing on one of those, broadcast events that we had at one company I worked at. So extraordinary. And there it is. It's funny what you piece together and a little tiny nugget that it took for me to realize what this means. It's a bigger picture. I think we're going headlong into this thing, whatever it means for everybody. Now, I wanted to, you've got a copy of this, Meki, the news. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I thought was very important to note, which came up this week, and I'll start with the Russia piece because it comes off the back of what we've been talking about. There was a UN Security Council emergency meeting this week at Russia's request. And this was to table evidence that they now have as a result of the conflict. Oh, sorry, the strategic operation. Isn't that it? From the Russia's point of view? Okay, so I don't care what the media says. I really don't care. Still, let's just call it a new sovereign country, and the possible, absorption of that into Russia for whatever purpose they said, but it'll make sense in a minute. So Russia is now claiming that Ukraine has been manufacturing chemical weapons, and it seems that these 30 labs that they're now announcing were funded by the USA's Ministry of Defense. Now that's good, because why not? Yeah, that's why we're in there. After the opponent's bloody on the ground, why are you fighting? And then they discover what it is after the opponent's on the ground. Oh yeah, it was labs, sure. Now they've claimed that the US are funding research on the plague and anthrax and a whole bunch of things. Well, that's fish in a barrel, because bio research is and holds copies of these, and so presumably does Russia. I know that the US has them, Japan certainly has them, no one's complaining about that. Everywhere in the world has a copy of these things somewhere, whether it's legal or illegal, and no one cares, right? But Russia is saying that they're using synthetic technology. So this is where you can print it yourself to make it, and they're modifying it and doing all this stuff. But you know what? Where have we heard this before? Remember the weapons of mass destruction? Chemical labs and trucks, and they're hiding them in lorries. Right?
Irrecontrovertible evidence. It's completely solid intelligence we have that also it is there. Yeah.
Who said? Oh, it was Bob. It was in a blog post online, in a forum, and Bob said it was true. Who's Bob? I don't know. Well, he said his name's Bob, but it might not be Bob.
Well, but he gave me the stuff. I mean, Bob, George, he had a name. I'm sure there was a name there, right? A person. I mean, where else would it have come from? I mean, come on, it came from somewhere. It might as well have been Bob.
Yeah, and so this is the reason why they've claimed they bombed the hospital, etc. There's nearly 2 hours of "please kill me now," UN Security Council blurb. It's really hard listening. It's interesting, and I like to watch Australian politics, which is pretty much a joke. But it's kind of schoolboy, playground kind of debate where no one really answers any questions. Everyone's got something to say about something, and there's never a true outcome. And politics is a complete joke. All right, but 2 hours. It's good. It's in stereo, so you can take the headphone off of the ear of the language you don't understand, and you can just listen to the translator in the other ear. It's actually pretty cool. Having said that, boy. So wherever you live, this was in context to what Russia is claiming is the reason for going into Ukraine is change, right? So I don't care. America's been doing change diplomacy for a while. That's what I've kind of labeled it now. What the hell? And I'm on my own on this, Mick, unless you agree. Right? So everybody wants in on this change diplomacy. They all do. All the big powers want it now, and now because other people are doing it, it's kind of bad. But when we were doing it, it was kind of okay because we had a solid reason for doing it. But what could happen next? And that's one of my big calls. Would we see bail-ins? Because a bailout is when the government sends money to the bank to stop them collapsing. But bail-ins is when, rather than the government doing it, they just take the money that's already invested with them to save themselves. Now, recently, and certainly in Australia, all the banks changed their wording about the policy and included bail-in as an option. We can just take your money if we need it. What do you mean? But isn't it my money? Well, it'll be our money after it's your money. It'll just be turned into ours. You don't have to worry about that. It's just going to be a thing. Do I get to vote on that? No. It's already decided. Like, we can do it any time. Oh, was that an election thing? Oh, no, see, because we got we got in trouble for, laundering money. We have never laundered money, but, we got in trouble for it. So, just in case we make some bad investments, or the world turns to, goes upside down, we can just take your money. And then, and that kind of led me to thinking about inflation. Money, inflation. What's causing it? What's truly causing inflation right now?
You mean to answer that?
Yeah.
Well, inflation is a function of the monetary system that we have adopted. So essentially, inflation is a function of the volume of money in circulation, right? It's a very simple equation. Unfortunately, there's no control over the money in circulation at all, because you no longer have to hold any reserves against the money that is out there in the world. So you might have $100 of real money, let's call it like real money, right? It's actually there. And then you put it in the bank, and the bank goes, "Oh, you got $100 here, sweet! I can now give everybody else $1,000, or even better, $10,000. Oh, you know what? I don't need your stinking $100. I give them $1 million." So, an increase
because that's
in the
how
money
wealth
supply,
creation occurs these days.
Yeah, an increase in the money supply, which is essentially printing money, leads to inflation. Now, inflation simply means an increase in the money supply, which means the money that you actually have is worth less, which doesn't make any sense either, because our economies are no longer tied to anything.
That's right.
So let me put it this way.
No gold standard.
In the olden days, we had a ton of gold. Like this 1 ton of gold is sitting in Fort Knox. I'm just making up numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And against that ton of gold, and I'm going to make up numbers, I'm issuing $1 million. So my $1 million is worth a ton of gold, okay? Now, if I start increasing the money supply, like to $2 million and $10 million, you can see how the 1 ton of gold is backing up more money, but the money in and of itself, each single dollar is worth less, because I have the same amount of gold backing up more currency, right?
Yeah,
That's
so they
inflation.
would look to source more gold to back it.
Now, but in our current, this really where it gets crazy. And you don't have to be an economist. I mean, I studied economics at uni, blah, it was boring as all hell. But anyway, you don't have to be an economist to understand that is inflation. That's easy enough. These days, though, okay, today, our monetary system, okay, our financial systems, the whole thing is based on nothing.
That's right.
So you can increase the money supply as much as you like without ever causing any inflation. Why? Because the value of your money is not tied to anything. You just say it's worth something. So and this is the biggest con there is. And if people
it's an agreed value only.
It's an agreed value, but not only is it an agreed value, inflation is also something that is agreed upon.
Yeah, completely.
Because there doesn't have to be any. You're increasing the money supply these days. It makes no difference. Why? Because it's not tied to anything of value. It's irrelevant. You can have a gazillion dollars in the world, right? And each dollar could still be, let's say a dollar is worth a can of Coke, for argument's sake, right? And it could still be worth a can of Coke, even if you had a gazillion dollars out there in the world, because the base currency that you started out with is no longer tied to anything of value.
That's right.
So inflation is actually a fiction. Okay?
And that's what we're seeing. All the messaging now is all about this inflation that's here.
From where? Where did it come from?
Yeah, it's conflated inflation, Mickey.
We're increasing the money supply. Knock yourself out. It's not tied to anything. I don't care how much money you put in the economy. Knock yourself out. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, so look, I think it's all the people, all the wealthy people just crying poor, and they want to actually start making interest again on their money that's been invested.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way to do it. Raise the interest rates. But it's the only lever I've got.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can only pull the lever. Do you want me to? I'll pull the lever. I'm going to pull the lever. And they say, advertise well in advance. What we're actually seeing as the cost of living increases is not inflation. That's the cost of living.
But it's tied directly to it. So this
yes.
is what happens, right? So, okay, I'll give you a simple example of petrol. So, I think we spoke about this before. So,
yes.
Obviously, petrol is distilled out of crude oil. Crude oil is pumped out of the earth. There it is. It's like a whole bunch of thick, black, gooey stuff. It's completely useless, right?
Until you split it.
Yeah.
Well, they call it crack it, but yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, it's useless until you actually refine it and do a few things to it, and then it becomes, all kinds of hydrocarbons, etc., etc. And then
beautiful
you've got petrol, but not just petrol, but other things as well. So there it is, right? That process, from when you pump it out to when you can actually put it into your car takes about, I want to say, between 3 and 6 months.
That's right.
That's how long it takes on a good day with supply chains working. So if the price of oil goes up today, it is not a reflection. Sorry, the price of petrol. is
That's
not a
right.
reflection of realities on the ground, because all the stuff that you're pumping into your car today and for the next 6 months, in fact,
Was
has
bought.
already been processed at a certain rate, at a
That's
certain
right.
cost.
So
okay?
you're right. So whether the Bowser price, like the pump price, goes up today, or the price per barrel goes up today,
irrelevant.
They're 6 months apart.
So what are we looking at? We're looking at profiteering. We're looking at people taking advantage of situations and putting up prices arbitrarily. So let me ask you this. So back in 1950, I think a bottle of Coke was like 5 cents, something like that, right? A cup of coffee was 5 or 10 cents, right? Something like that. Now, has the coffee become a lot more, I don't know, potent?
No.
Is there a lot more sugar in the Coca-Cola that you're drinking?
There could be, but the base ingredients are identical.
Yeah. So it's the same stuff. You're just paying more for it. Now, why are you paying more for it? Oh, because of inflation. Inflation doesn't exist. Inflation is made up. It is a function of our completely fraudulent economic system that we all live under. Okay? And then on top of that, you don't just have this completely made up system of value. On top of that, you have greed. And greed and profiteering is what drives the price up. Nothing else. Nothing else.
Good.
People just want more stuff.
Pepsi?
That's it.
I want a partial credit for that. So before I talk about the next two, because I think we were kind of mentioned COVID-19. Where's that in the media now? It's gone, right? That was my point around it. But I wanted to say, Mekki, have you been catching up with what Justin Trudeau has been doing this last week?
Honestly, no. But why don't you tell me?
Well, I'd be happy to. Thank you very much. And then you can tell me whether you've seen any of it. Okay, so Justin Trudeau has recently requested that democracies all around the world combine to fight autocracy. Okay. So let that sink in for a minute. He used the term slippage. He said, democracies have been suffering from a bit of slippage recently. Okay, that's what he said. And wait a minute. Wow. Really? Has he already forgotten what he did to the truckers? Because remember, he calls for the stopping of misinformation on social media. Again, wait a minute. I need to say that, in my opinion, that is the pot calling the kettle black, to use an old expression. After his description of the truckers publicly as a right-wing extremist group, even QAnon members, and took hold of their bank accounts, assets, and used these messages to instigate the most extreme measures to control the people by force to the people who were protesting. Hang on a minute, that sounds like an autocracy, because his messaging is now clear and transparent. He is underwriting the crushing the protests, but it was not democratic. So he's trying to reconfirm what he did, but then call it out as being bad. Hang on, you can't. Is he bipolar now or something?
No. It's bad when someone else does it. It's democracy when he does it.
Oh, yes, must be it. But consider that's right. But consider this: no Canadians voted for the rule.
Canadians who not? What?
What? No Canadians voted for those emergency rules that they put in place. So it validates how quickly a democracy can turn into fascism. Remember, the path to tyranny is decided by the ruling party. And that's what we've seen two leaders in the world, I'm not going to name them, who have decided while they're in power, they're going to remain in power until they possibly just simply pass away from old age. That is how easy it is to turn what might have been democracy, where people vote, and the outcome of the vote is tallied. Depending on which country you're in. Is that too soon? Still the vote. And then those people enact the wishes of the people by the policies that they stood for during the election. Hang on, I thought that's what democracy was. I didn't think it was correct. Yeah, I know, silly me, right?
Silly Dave. Silly, beautiful, simple Dave.
Simple Dave, yeah. Me with my rose-coloured glasses on and my hippie tunic.
Shalom.
Yeah. Shalom, yeah. And here I am tree hugging, right? I never thought that wearing sandals and having long hair and those John Lennon glasses I didn't believe that my beliefs would turn into an autocracy. Right? Because I believed in democracy. And I think this is the challenge that we're seeing right now. So he's calling out that all of the autocracies in the world are really bad. Really bad. But when I did it was fine. But they're all really bad. So stop it. We should band together as democracies to fight misinformation and disinformation on social media.
Yeah. It's
what?
Look,
it was hard to watch him do it, mate. Back to you in the studio.
Well, but see, that's why he's one of the golden boys. You can flip you can spin on a coin. You can flip and flop and do 180s and 240s and 90s, all kinds of things, right? You're doing the triple twist cork, and you land on both your feet. In order to do that, you have to be convinced that what you say is true. And it doesn't have to be true as long as you believe it to be true. Or at least you can project the authority of truth in what you say. And look, this is an unfortunate truth that I will share with all of you. As a population, well, especially in the West, right? Because we like to think of ourselves as educated and all those wonderful things. We are not. We used to be. We used to understand things a lot better. Our education has slipped. We don't understand what democracy means. We talk about all the things we have. We talk about the American system. And I'm talking about the United States here. We're talking about the Canadian system. We're talking about the British system. We're talking about the Australian system. We're talking about the German system, the French system. And we're calling them all democracies, right? Now, in our mind, democracy means one person, one vote. That's what it means in our head, right? That's what we think it is. So, we all get together and then we vote on something, or we might get a person to vote for us, but we had to vote for that person in the first place to then make a decision on our behalf. That's also something that we understand democracy to be. Unfortunately, that's not true. There's no such thing as democracy. I don't know if there ever was, really, except maybe for Switzerland. There's no democracy. There's no one person, one vote. It used to be one man, one vote. Remember the slogan? Because the people that have the power systems under control in their hands, they've locked it up tight. If you try to break in, you will either conform after a while, right? You just toe the line, or you will be, you will no longer be there to be a problem. So these democracies, they're not that. We have been ruled by the few for a very, very long time. And in recent times, in the last 20 years, it has been so obvious, and we don't seem to care about it. It's been so obvious, it's hitting us like a baseball bat in the face. And I had that moment when I looked at the American presidential election in the year 2000, I think it was. And you had George Bush Jr., right? And you had,
Al Gore.
I think it was, John Kerry.
Oh, John Kerry.
So it might have been 2004. I could get my... But it was whenever John Kerry was going up against George Bush Jr. Now you're okay, well, is that really that amazing? Well, it is. And I'll tell you why it is amazing. Because John Kerry, being, I think he was a few years junior to George Bush Jr., was a member of Skull and Bones. George Bush Jr. was a member of Skull and Bones at Harvard. I think Harvard, right? Yeah, Harvard. Or Yale, sorry, Yale. I could be, hang on, let me just double check this. But ultimately, it's a secret society which has at any given time a couple of hundred living members, right? No more on the planet. So out of 7 billion people, there's a couple hundred that are members of Skull and Bones. That's just how it is. Yale, it was Yale, in fact, thank you. And you have to be selected to be part of it. So you can't apply for it. You have to be tapped on the shoulder. Usually legacies and people that show promise there. invited to join. Now, we don't really know all that goes on. Suffice it to say, no one ever talks about it. In fact, John Kerry was asked about this very specifically, and he would not divulge anything, nor did anyone really that is a member of Skull and Bones. But
I wouldn't imagine that they would.
Yeah, but my point here, so Yale, first of all, is a very expensive Ivy League school, number one. Number two, it has on its campus a very exclusive club, which at any given time has a couple hundred members at the most. Point number three, in the presidential election race of the United States of America, which is 300 million citizens, 300 million citizens, two people that belong to that club, which has at any given time a couple hundred members.
What are the odds?
What are the odds? Go against each other in an election. A father and a son. The father and son are both president, and they both, again, happen to be members of this Skull and Bones Society.
Well, the next one would be Holy Ghost, wouldn't it?
And George Bush, that's right. And George Bush Sr. In fact, they're generational legacies now, the Bushes, right? So you ask yourself, hey, what? And everybody seems to think, oh yeah, that's okay. That's not
sure
okay.
It is. That's the USA's own version of an oligarch.
It is completely an oligarchy, right? And look, it only became an autocracy, or it is on the way to an autocracy after 9/11. That's when it started. Okay.
Yeah.
In anger. Certainly Eisenhower warned us about it in the 50s when he in his farewell speech. And it took a while to get there, but so this oligarchical arrangement, and I guess it's just a natural thing for human beings. I'm not saying it's not. I mean, this is who we are. I look after my family and my friends.
You want them to do the family business.
Yeah, yeah, that's what we do. But I don't think we would take it necessarily to the extreme to the exclusion of others. But these people do. They stay in power to the exclusion of others, and that's just us. This is not the parasites I'm talking to, right? I love the accent. But it is. These are the people like us, the people that have been elevated to positions of power, or clawed their way up, or whatever it might be. So these are not the actual parasites running everything. This is just us human beings doing what we do. And everywhere it's the same. It doesn't matter who you vote for. It's completely irrelevant. It doesn't matter. Even probably a lot of people hate this, but even Donald Trump makes no difference. Vote for him, don't vote for him. If he's in power, not in power, the same thing will happen. We will get the same end results. Maybe some things faster, maybe some things slower. But the playbook is already there. And again, let's go 100 years back in history to make the point even more obvious. Just prior to World War I, the Tsar of Russia, the Kaiser of Germany, and the British King were all first cousins. In fact, if you look at pictures of them, they could be brothers.
Family tree.
And nothing has changed. Sure, we've done away with the monarchies here and there and the royalties over there, but the principles still stand. The few are still in charge. You're voting for someone, well, good luck to you. That's great. That's nice. It means absolutely nothing.
Yeah, so the monarchies were the same. Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth, they were relatives.
Yeah.
So, look, the terrible Godfather accent that I put there. You want to look after your family. You want to, if you're a business owner, you want to pass the business on to your children and teach them how to run it, whether they want to do it or not. But hopefully you get some success there. You realize there's a time when you can't. So, when you have people in any role at all that's of any importance, you want to do that. You want to pass on the baton to the next gen and hope that they can do well. Not sit in at a primary school waiting for the outcome of a kid's book rather than do something about 9/11. Yeah. Just saying.
Well, but that's true. Sorry, comment. The answer is yes. The news cycle here. Sorry, comment. I just saw your question. So a comment in the chat room asked, did the Russia invasion scare away Corona? Yes, very much so.
Completely, it's gone.
Not much in the news cycles unless you watch local news, or you really watch news 24/7. There's some mention of it. But yeah, the news cycle. I mean, it's no longer news, right? The coronavirus.
It's only 4 or 5 stories that they can fit into a news half hour.
Yeah.
And so, good luck. And they've got to fit the sport in and the weather. When there's a ton of weather stories, woohoo! Yeah, look at that. We don't have to say anything about anything today.
Yeah. So
flooding, rescues, guys, electricity out, home damages. Oh, and now to the sport.
Not to the sport, yeah. Not to you, Kerry. But see, this is where we are, right? So as a democracy, forget about it. It just doesn't exist, okay? And even the system, but even if we did have it, the systems that we have in place today, the American, the collegiate system that we have, the college system, right? The voting colleges. In Australia, we have something called a preferential votes, right? So
it's also very complicated.
Preferences. Yeah, but what it means ultimately, though, is that it's rigged.
It still supports a two-party preferred system.
Yeah, it's rigged. And people don't understand that they can vote for neither party.
There's more than 26 parties.
You can vote for independence or another party altogether, right?
It looked like an Excel spreadsheet. It went out to like XX. Do you remember?
Oh, dude.
It was crazy.
But we okay, so see, you know what is funny? Ask your children, if you have children, teenagers even, right? Ask them if they understand how our democracy works. Ask them if they understand how the voting process works. Ask them if they understand how the powers work, the judicial, the executive, etc. Ask them that, and then see how many can answer your question. Because the thing is this: we aren't really told about this anymore, right? It's not a secret. You can look it all up. It's not hidden. We're just not taught to be critical citizens anymore. We no longer enfranchised. We are enfranchised in as much as we do have a vote, but we're not enfranchised in as much as we don't understand how it all hangs together. We just don't know this. None of us know. Well, sorry, a lot of us don't understand what it is we do when we vote. Right? And once you're in the machine, once you become part of a party or the bureaucracy or even, in America, I guess it's, the swamp, the White House area. Once you're in it, that's it. You just want to be in it and you stay there, not because you want to help people or serve the community, because you see, this is where the power is. You see, this is where I can make decisions or help make decisions, and essentially, pardon my French, but screw everybody else.
So we've truly evident was one of Australia's rock band leaders who went in with the best ideals, fought as hard as he could, got nowhere, then becomes let's say just some negative press, and that was too much. So you think you might go in there and make some changes with all of those ideals and all the wishes you had, then you just find that everybody else is against you because they've got their own. And it's easier explained as there's just a horizontal line, and if you measure it and put a dot in the middle, that's the middle politics. But every person in politics will line up with no doubling in any position. And every other person on that line, either in your party or in any other party, disagrees with you. They all have their own, like you have your own, idea of what it should be. And you'll never, ever win. The only wins come from sponsors.
So what we find more and more, now we shared this with you over the course of the week. The mayor of Lithgow was asked, well, what do you think we need? This was on a national panel called the Drum.
Yes.
It's like a news broadcast where a panel of people just discuss current affairs for an hour every night. What the mayor of Lithgow said was this, and he said it with those words: what we need is a benevolent dictator to get stuff done. Yeah. Because right now, in Australia at least, and I've seen similar issues when it came to disasters in the States and other parts of the world. Oddly enough, Germany not. That was pretty quick what they did there. But we need someone that takes charge. Someone that gets stuff done. We need things to get done, not just debated endlessly and always with a view. How will this look with the voters? Is this going to test well? Huh? Is it? Oh, it'll test real well. Yes, we saved the world. That'll test through the roof, sir. But yeah. So there are people.
But unfortunately, there's no money. There's no budget for it.
Well, we know we have billions of dollars put away in an account for disasters. We actually have the money. It's sitting there.
Yeah,
right?
but we're not
By the way,
spending
we
any of it because
can't spend it. No.
no, because you're
And
going to
then-
pour if you spend money.
And the thing is this, though, these floods we had, which are unprecedented.
That's
I mean,
right.
it's unprecedented.
Worst ever.
This is not one in a 100 year or 1 in 1,000 year flood. But I had one of the local people say this is a 1 in a million year flood.
Yeah.
And so it's just unprecedented. I mean, the disaster is. I mean, we got thousands of houses which are no longer inhabitable. Thousands.
Mm-hmm.
They're so badly flood damaged they can no.
They're thinking
have to be
of
knocked
making a new estate and moving you up the hill.
down. 100%. So, oh no, yeah, we can't. No, can't do it.
Mhm.
Now we know we can because back in the 70s, 74, I think it was, when Hurricane Tracy hit Darwin,
Yeah.
and the same kind of population numbers. It was for 40,000 people in
That's
Darwin
right.
then, and it's about 40,000 people in Lithgow now. Within the next day, people were being evacuated. The next day, the Brigadier General, I think it was, can't
Yes.
remember his name, who was in charge, he was on the ground starting the work.
That's right.
And
Civil
within a
engineers.
week,
Yep.
yeah, within a week, everybody, and maybe even faster, had been evacuated that needed to be evacuated. Here, there were two guys in a tinny, in a little inflatable boat, even rescuing people from their houses. Just two blokes, two guys,
That's right.
two blokes in a boat, and they were going around the neighborhood to pick up people from their roofs, just private citizens, right?
Did you know that the government pays helicopter pilots who are all aviation helicopters with their pilots who are private? They
Yeah.
pay them a fee to be on call.
Yeah.
And none of them were called.
Yeah.
None.
And you know what else happened? 000. So in Australia, the
Yep.
911 number is 000.
Yes, 000, yeah.
Okay? And you know what happened?
What happened?
Nobody picked up.
Wow.
There was imagine. See, there's this. I think it was The Walking Dead or some zombie movie, right? Well, I mean, what would happen if you called 000 or 911 and no one picked up, right? That's the scenario. That's the scenario we were in here during the floods. The system was so overwhelmed that the ones that were picked up, the person on the phone had to make a horrendous choice sometimes. Where do I send the ambulance? Where do I send the SES people? Where do I do it, right?
That's right.
So much so, in fact. Nobody. Return to Germany. It's no better than here. It's no better than here.
It had its worst flood ever.
But the point is that
There's
we are
music.
now in a situation where people don't get the help that they not only deserve but have every right to receive.
Yeah, absolutely. So we need an airborne force to fix it. We're going to catch you on the other side of this break. This is Dave Mackey Shiny Side Out, episode 521. End of the first hour. See you after the short break. Take care. We're going to be talking about ancient aliens in part 4.